Chairman. I thank the witnesses for your testimony today. As I listen, I can't help but reflect upon stepping into the office of one of my district employees who happens to also be a state senator. As I sat down and borrowed his telephone, I looked up at the shelf, and there was a framed picture of the 4D ultrasound of my godson. And I think I'd ask Dr. Kondik, do you have any, what's your opinion as to the availability of that technology and how it might have moved hearts and minds?
I think the 4D ultrasound is a very powerful way of looking inside a situation that has been a black box in the past. And I think we are very visual creatures. Humans react to things they can see. And a lot of the emotional disposition of people in the abortion debate has centered on the fact that we can't really see that baby. And everything that's happening, as Dr. Levatino so graphically described, is happening in the dark. So being able to open the womb to a picture of a baby that's moving, that you can recognize as a baby, I think has a strong emotional effect because it allows people to see what's really there, not some massive tissue or blob of cells. But
it's curious that we call it 4D ultrasound, but yet we can't hear the sound of the baby.
By 4 dimensions, they mean you see three-dimensionally, so you see the baby as not as a flat image, but as a projection in space, and then the fourth dimension is time. So you get to see the baby moving.
Well, let's explore that other dimension of sound.
Yes.
And it occurs to me that people are emotionally sensitive to sound. And I just was thinking this through. I know people that don't eat any red meat, and part of the reason is they can hear in their mind's ear the sound of that animal that's being harvested for our consumption. So they don't eat beef, they don't eat pork, they say I don't eat red meat, but they might eat chicken or duck, probably because the sound of a chicken or duck doesn't trouble them as much. I've heard them say that. And then some will not eat poultry, but they'll eat fish because fish can't scream for their own mercy. And so I go on down the line to the vegan side of it, no animal products and only vegetables. And it occurs to me that those that have a dietary preference, that's fine. Those that have a political position, I guess that's fine. But some of them, they can't abide the sound of the processing of that animal in their mind's ear. And I recall sitting in this committee during the partial birth abortion debates that we had, and the description of the partial birth abortion about babies being delivered to just right an inch before they could fill their lungs with free air and scream for their own mercy. And it strikes me that that sound is in the mind's ear of the jury of Dr. Gosnell, and it's now in the mind's ear of the people in this country that are deliberating on this, and I'd wonder, Doctor, if you would comment on that.
I think anything that allows people to more realistically understand what a fetus really is and what it's really capable of, its experiences, its reactions, its emotions, is a movement towards honesty, and I would fully support it.
Thank you. Ms. Stanek, you said that the excruciating fate of the child is determined simply by geography, and I didn't hear your testimony expand on that. Could you expand on that thought a little for us, please?
Yes, the baby that I held, who was between 21 and 22 weeks old, was about the size of my hand. And he didn't move very much because he was just attempting to survive by breathing. And after he was pronounced dead, took him to the morgue where we take all of our other dead patients. And that same age baby, who I held, an abortion survivor, is aborted today, going on right now, limb from limb, drawn and quartered, as Dr. Levatino described. And whereas we give pain relief to born babies at same age, it's well known, in utero when they're being operated on and after they're born, we don't seem to give any care or regard to these same babies if they're not wanted, if the moms want to terminate their pregnancies.
So that is determined by the prospect of their survival as well as their geography.
I'm sorry, what was that?
By the prospect of their survival. If the child is receiving surgery in order to save this child,
right,
as opposed to an operation to kill the child.
Right, right.
So
Exactly.
the prospects of survival. And then if I could just quickly turn to Dr. Levatino, and I'd ask this opinion. I heard the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Conyers, say that this was a painful and uncomfortable experience here. Could you compare that painful and uncomfortable experience here to the one that a child goes through?
I have done this my entire professional life. I've dealt with preemies down to this size and even smaller. Well, certainly down to this size. And I've done the abortions firsthand. I am dismayed sometimes at particularly the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. I was a fellow in that organization for over 20 years. I held a leadership post at one point. And I withdrew my membership several years ago because of some of the, despite all the good things that the organization does, and there are many, frankly, what I saw is the obvious political stance they took on this issue. And it bothers me when they talk about, fetuses don't feel any pain at all till they're viable. Isn't that amazing? It just suddenly switches on when they're viable. And if anybody thinks that ripping off arms and legs and crushing these children the way we do doing these procedures is painful, they're just kidding themselves. They're badly kidding themselves. And then when you look at those pictures of this abortionist now in Houston, I hope he will be properly investigated and possibly prosecuted. These children almost had their heads torn off. And if you don't think that's painful, I've been sitting here ruminating a little bit about the letter that was read. Very interesting, you know. Children with renal agenesis are not entitled to a chance at life. Children with Down syndrome are not entitled to a chance for life. Children with different types of brain injuries are not even entitled to a chance to live. Is that what we're championing here?
Thank you, Doctor. I thank all the witnesses, and I yield back.